Now, I'll bet you could probably guess this one. I love Easter, and I love all the pageantry that goes with it. Coloring eggs. Now, I still love doing that. And in my house, when my kids got into their teens, not only did we still color eggs, the Easter Bunny still hid them. So we could actually still do Easter egg hunts for a long, long time. Now, in today's episode, Paige Parsons joins me. She's the founder of rabbit.org and a foundational figure in the House Rabbit movement. Now, are you sitting here thinking, House Rabbit movement? What the heck is that? Now, I bet a lot of you are. But let's just hold on for a second. Every Easter, with the best intentions, many people get little bunnies for their kids. Again, with the best intentions. And heck, how cute are those little bunnies? Anyways, oftentimes though, many of these people don't do their research. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with them. Now, rabbit.org is everything bunny rabbit. It's a great resource. House rabbits, think of them this way. A rabbit that has access to the house just like any of the other companion animals. And like other companion animals, there's a lot you need to know to take care of them properly. Rabbits are the third most surrendered pet in the U.S. animal shelters. Every year, a few months after Easter, the shelters, if they have room, get lots of rabbits. Now, Paige and I get into this and a lot more. Now, I'm sure you heard of rabbits thumping, but have you heard about the term binkying or zoomies? Well, get ready. In this episode, we really are hopping down the bunny trail.
For real, 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 for real. Got a bunch of furry friends and I love them all the same. I'm an animal lover, veterinarian is the name. Let's share some pet stories from heartwarming to strange, losses and games, from wacky to insane. For real. You're now tuned in to For Real with your host, Mark Kyle.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the For Real Podcast. Today my guest is Paige Parsons, and it's Easter week, and we're going to talk some Easter stuff and a lot of other things. Paige, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. So happy to be here.
So just for you guys listening, we've had all kinds of internet problems, and Paige has been really patient with me today. So anyways, here we go again. Fingers crossed. So for you guys listening too, it's the week of Easter. This is coming out. You're going to be hearing it. Comes out on Tuesday after Easter, just as FYI. But we're going to be talking a lot of things that are relative to it and all that. But what I wanted to start off with, because I'm convinced that we got a great internet connection this time, is let's talk about you. Let's talk when you were younger, how you got to where you are, why you're doing what you're doing, and all the other cool things you do as well.
Sure. I'll start out. I'll just give you my little bunny elevator pitch. So I'm Paige Parsons, and I've been involved in rabbit education and advocacy for a very long time. My first house rabbit, Fubar, joined me in 1990, and that experience really changed the course of my life. Living with a rabbit taught me that they're intelligent, they're social, they're funny, deeply feeling animals, and that they're also wildly misunderstood. Fubar was definitely misunderstood.
Fubar, I love that name, because for you guys who don't listen, look up what the acronym stands for. But let's define house rabbit. I know what it is, but for everybody that's listening, because there's wild rabbits, hares, and all that kind of stuff too.
Sure. Well, my definition of a house rabbit is a domesticated rabbit that lives indoors in your house with you, not living in a cage in your backyard or in the garden or running free outside. Basically, they're sort of either having their own small place or living in a room or free range within your house. And that's how I've had my bunnies since 1990.
And so basically, and we're going to get into a lot of this stuff, but basically it's a companion animal. It's bigger than a cat, but small. Well, they can be. And it's like a cat / a dog, but it's a companion animal. It's just one hanging out like the rest of the animals.
That's right. And, bunnies really range in size. The smallest ones are maybe 2-3 pounds. The two rescues that I live with happen to be tiny little 3-pound fuzzballs. And some, like continental giant rabbits, could be up to 30 pounds. So some of them might even be bigger than some of your dogs as well. But overall, bunnies are bunnies, and they're just generally highly intelligent. They are social. They want to live with other bunnies as well. They They can be litter trained. They should be spayed and neutered, and they make wonderful companion animals for the right people.
Well, and I can say I had one. We know I'm not going to get into the story, but I had a house rabbit. It cruised around the house and walked around and did its thing. And by the way, they can be, and you can probably attest as we get along, but you can train them to go in litter boxes.
You can indeed. The first step, the most important step, is spay or neuter before you're trying those litter box habits, because with all those hormones running around in their bodies, they are not too interested in using a litter box. They're just going to want to mark their territory if they're not spayed or neutered. But once they are, they're really very fastidious animals that love to keep clean and like to poop and pee in one, maybe two spots, and they're a delight to have around the house. It's like your own in-home nature show.
Yeah, exactly. And, having them, and I'm going to get in some of the terms that I read about when I was doing my homework, but I'm going to go back in time a little bit first. I know as a child, your mom wanted you to have a pet that would live longer that you wanted to get, and that's how you got your first rabbit.
That's right. When I was about ten years old, that's right. I had hamsters, and hamsters just did not live a very long life. And I got very sad when they passed. And my mom didn't like to see me sad. She made me do my research. And I said, Mom, how about a bunny? Bunnies, they live for 8 to 12 years. And so very soon after that, I had my first bunny. But I can tell you that was back in 1980, a very, very long time ago. People didn't know much about house rabbits back then. There really wasn't much to be learned. My first bunny was outdoors. And I think that my first bunny very quickly passed to something called myxomatosis, which is very endemic to here in the Bay Area, sadly, even to this day. And there's no vaccine, there's no remedy for that. And so outdoor rabbits in the Bay Area are, a mosquito comes along and that's it. And now we also have the problem all across the United States of rabbit hemorrhagic disease, RHDV2. And that came up about the same time in terms of a pandemic that the COVID pandemic did. And it's been killing rabbits across the world, especially in Australia up until now. And it hit the United States back in 2020. And we lost a huge number of wild rabbits and many domestic rabbits as well, too. The good news is about this disease is that there is a vaccine, and most vets do have it available now. And that's something that you can prevent in your rabbits. So we used to say that rabbits didn't need any vaccines. And now with a companion animal, you do need to get a yearly RHDV2 vaccine.
Do rabbits get arthritis?
They do. Arthritis can be a big problem. And just like for the larger dogs, it's a bigger problem. For the bigger bunnies, it's a much larger problem as well, too. But if a bunny is lucky enough to get into the senior years of his or her life, arthritis is often one of the things that come with it. And it makes it much more difficult to get into that litter box as well, too.
Sure.
But there are things that you can do, just like with a cat, lowering the edge of it, or even using a very shallow baking pan, for example, that they can get it in and out of that can help them to get along with their arthritis, heating pads, other things. There's actually a site that's online. I believe it's disabledbunnies.com or disabledbunnies.org, but that it's all about older arthritic rabbits, other bunnies that have different health conditions. There are so many resources online now to help with elderly rabbits, young behavioral issues with rabbits, feeding rabbits, you name it. There are resources. And at Rabbit.org Foundation, which I run, we have a lot of resources there and point everybody to all the other wonderful resources that are online and available to help us care for these wonderful animals.
Well, I was going to say you guys got a huge resource, and then we're kind of bouncing all over the place. But one of the things I've saw on your website is all the different rescues in the various states. I'm in Texas, so I certainly look at it, and there's 4 or 5 people in Texas. I didn't realize there were that many rescues for rabbits. That's pretty cool.
There are over 400 that I know of, and there are probably more independent rabbit rescue nonprofit organizations across the United States. And what we at Rabbit.org Foundation, we do not rescue. We are not rescuers. We are here to support the rescuers and to support the people with the bunnies. All these independent rescues are doing such a phenomenal job of working with the rabbit overpopulation and the rabbit abandonment crisis. And we do everything that we can to support these independent rescues. In fact, we even run a online Slack group for free to support any of the rescues that want to join us. We have about 70 to 100 of them right now called Every Bunny. and everybody is there to support all these different rescues, because the more, I just believe in community, and the more we can get people together, especially these small independent rescues, the better the work that they can be doing, and focusing on what they need to focus on, which is those abandoned rabbits.
For real, 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 for real.
And we'll be right back.
As a pet lover, did you know your pet can benefit from the incredible healing power of stem cell therapy? Prep Therapy offers a groundbreaking solution taken right from your pet's own blood. Say goodbye to joint pain, arthritis, kidney and liver conditions, and more. They'll experience faster recovery, increased vitality, and extended quality of life without the need for surgery or harmful drugs. Put the wag back in their tail and discover Prep Therapy today at prepvet.com. Save 10% with promo code FurRealPodcast, covered by most pet insurance.
You started with house rabbits, so let's talk a little bit how you got. I want to know how you joined, why you joined that,
Sure.
and then of course why you started rabbit.org and all that, and we can talk about the issues that are out there. We'll talk a little bit about the Easter Bunny and all the other stuff too.
Fantastic. So, back to the second part of my elevator pitch. So, Fubar, my first house rabbit, didn't know about spaying or neutering, got a second bunny as well, too, was smart enough to keep those bunnies apart. But I didn't know how to properly care for a house rabbit. And I found out about this organization called House Rabbit Society that was putting out this publication called House Rabbit Journal. And I just thought, wow, what a wonderful resource. What a great group of people. I would love to help make their information available to everyone. And this was at the start of the internet. At the time, I was working for Apple Computer at one of their research labs, and I had access to servers where I could host a website. And I worked with Marinol Harriman and Margot DeMello and some of the founders of House Rabbit Society, and said, hey, I'm a young person that knows some about rabbits, but I need to know so much more. Let's work together. Let's get this information up at a website. And it used to be actually hosted at my husband's research group at MIT. And a couple years later, I was able to obtain rabbit.org, and we moved all the information there. But I've been working with House Rabbit Society since the early 90s. I created rabbit.org back then, and I worked with House Rabbit Society as an educator for several decades, and I served twice on their board. They have a wonderful mission, and over the years, we all were seeing the same thing over and over. Good-hearted people were given bad information, and rabbits were paying the price. And so in about 2023, I made the move to run rabbit.org as an independent nonprofit, which became the rabbit.org Foundation. And I did that with Marinol Harriman, the founder of House Rabbit Society. And for me, it was really about continuing the work that I've cared about for decades: education, advocacy, and helping people understand rabbits well enough to care for them properly and see them for who they really are, these social, intelligent creatures that, deserve the same kind of rights that we give to dogs and cats when it comes to companion animals.
Okay, I forewarned you. So I know there's the term cat lady. Is there rabbit lady out there? Are you?
Sure. Yeah, and I'm sure rabbit ladies aren't too different than cat ladies in that sense. I will say that my husband has been very helpful in keeping me in check all these years. The largest number of rabbits we have ever had in our home has been 4 rabbits at a time. But let me tell you, if I was just at it on my own, I think probably, my numbers would have skyrocketed. But I do think that keeping my number lower has really helped me to focus on the mission and not to focus too much on rescue and caring for some of the rabbits as they've become older and had issues such as arthritis or other kinds of health conditions that can come up when the bunnies get older.
Well, I think passion in any form is good, so I think it's good. And I never really thought of it. I want to be a rabbit guy. Like I said, finally remember the name. It was Harvey was the name of ours, obviously. I mean, how unique was that name? But anyways, let's talk about rabbits first. I want to get into the issue we have with them, the abandonment and all that a little bit later. Let's just talk about rabbits as a pet, what they're like. I know you guys have it on your site, but let's go. I decide I have a young daughter or son that wants a bunny rabbit, and they get a bunny from wherever wherever they get it. Let's talk about from bunny to older. I know you mentioned earlier that they live 8 to 12 years, but let's, because there's a lot of misnomers up there, like the carrot thing and all that. Let's talk a little bit about that so everybody understands.
Sure. So, talking to the people that don't yet have a bunny, the biggest thing to understand is that they do live that long. I mean, think about it. If you've got a let's just say a 10-year-old child and they're like, bunny, 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 I really want a bunny. Are you really prepared to have that bunny with you until your child's, graduating from high school and probably past when they're graduating from college? That's one thing to think about. Now, I know there are also a lot of people out there that weren't necessarily thinking about that to begin with, and they already have a bunny and think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And the main thing I want to say is that, and I mentioned this before, a bunny is kind of like having an in-home nature show, because they're really fun to watch and to interact with a little bit, but you interact with the rabbit on the rabbit's own terms. And we cannot forget that rabbits are prey animals. They're at the bottom of the food chain, and they're just about always scared of a little bit of something, even the people that they love. And they're most fearful of being picked up. Because normally for all of the history of rabbits, being picked up usually meant it was like a hawk, a dog, or a coyote or something, and it was going to be somebody, that animal's dinner. So they have a lot of fear about being picked up. But that being said, they're very inquisitive about new items in their environment. They are, like I said, they're easy to litter box train, as long as they're spayed or neutered, and they're so much fun to have around the home as long as it's bunny proofed as well too. And when I talk about bunny proofing, in particular, you can't have any cords around where those bunnies are, computer cords, phone cords, or something from the past for the most part. But anything small, like a twig, but I'm holding up this here, like any one of your USB cables, they just look at that as a little root in a burrow that they've just got to nip through in a single bite. And let me tell you, even somebody as experienced as me, you don't want to know how many chargers I've been through for both my phones and my computers, because you just let it slip for a moment and there goes that cord. But if you can bunny proof your home, it's a delight to have these animals doing what they call their little binkies, their zoomies. They love to nudge you, they love to run around you, they can sometimes come when their name is called. They know to the minute when food is going to come. In my home, anytime they hear a bag rustling in the kitchen, they know that greens are coming their way. And they're just, sitting by the bunny gate, just, waiting and looking like, when am I going to get fed? When am I going to get fed? They love to groom each other. They're incredibly social.
Well, the other thing is too, they're quiet.
Very quiet, very, very quiet.
Yeah.
About the only noise you're going to hear out of them is an occasional thump.
Yeah.
When they're a little worried or when they're pissed off at you. So.
Yeah, it's funny because when I had mine, I got the thump every now and then, and I didn't know the term until I was getting ready for the show. And the binking, is it binking or
binky?
Yeah, the one where they jump and kind of flip in the air a little bit and all that.
Yes,
that's when they're happy. Generally, I guess that's the
always
thing.
A binky is always a dance of delight, and that just means that, especially if sometimes you're not able to give rabbits a huge amount of space all the time. We recommend a minimum of that they can lay down like at least 2 to 3 times their length. So like a 3 foot by a 4 foot area. If you've got your bunny contained to an area like that and all of a sudden you let them out, the first thing they're usually going to want to do is a great big binky as they're coming out, showing their delight at running around. Or just sometimes first thing in the morning as well too, when they see a treat coming their way. They remember they don't have a voice, and so they're going to show everything in terms of their mood and their behavior through their body language.
Well, it's funny because I know the term binky was like a pacifier, but I'd never seen that term. So I love this term because I remember my bunny doing the same thing, jumping around and doing that thing all the time. And so obviously, I guess the bunny liked me. Now I know.
Yep. And they also do something called zoomies. Zoomies is another term that you hear as well too. And zoomies are when they're just running around like crazy. Again, like we have, I keep on looking to my side because I see a bunny out of the corner of my eye, but just running huge loops around the room, like again and again and again and again and around and around and around. That's what's called a zoomie. And I don't think there's a particularly good term for it, but they also do this little dance, especially when they're older and they might not be able to binky as easily, but they wiggle their butts a little bit, and it's just, they run and they give it a little shake, and they're just excited to know that, that food's coming or that it's a chance to play. And they're incredibly communicative with their body language.
So let's talk about, I mean, I remember, it's been a while since we had the rabbit, but I kind of remember the rabbit running around the house and doing the zoomies. I definitely remember the binky, which is going to be my new favorite thing to say. I love that. I really do. But let's talk about feeding them and caring for them. I know that, I'm just going to let you do that because I've read a lot of stuff. They're not really meant to be in a cage and all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about that.
Nope, you wouldn't keep a cat in a cage. You should be keeping a bunny in a cage either. And some people might not have a lot of space. So like I said, really the smallest type area is sort of about 3 foot by 4 foot. We kind of feel like pen living is best and that you can let them out into more space. So that's sort of the basics of space. The basics of diet, hey, just hey. Like number one thing to think about when feeding a rabbit is hay. Hay is the staple. Timothy hay, alfalfa hay. When they're very young, it's very rich. It's higher in protein. It's higher in calcium. Timothy hay and some orchard grass and maybe a little bit of oat hay. But that should be the primary part of their diet. About 75% of what they're getting should be that. And just depending upon the weight of the rabbit, just a small handful of the pellets or the kibble or whatever you want to call it. And it needs to be a really high quality one, something like Small Pet Select or Oxbow, that is making something that's based on Timothy and doesn't have a lot of filler. People get really excited and see these kinds of foods that have lots of different colors and sprinkles and special little things in there. Those are not healthy for rabbits. Anything that has sunflower seeds, corn kernels, food dyes, things like that, that's really not what you want to be doing. Just think hay, a tiny amount of pellets, and then you want some fresh greens as well too. Most rabbits love things like dandelion greens. They love cilantro. They love parsley, and they love kale as well.
Do they eat mint?
Yes, they will eat mint as well too. Yes, and the thing that you have to worry about is actually sweets for rabbits, and the equivalent of a sweet for a rabbit would be carrots, or like a big slice of apple or something like that. These are foragers. They're meant to be eating just a little bit and grazing all day long and not having a really dense calorie source. So things like carrots and apples are just way, way too calorie dense for a rabbit to be having, other than a teeny tiny little bit as a little bit of a treat. Think of it as the equivalent of like giving somebody a big scoop of ice cream with hot fudge on top. You can't be doing that all the time, every day.
So let's debunk the carrot thing and how they got started and all that kind of stuff. So for you guys listening, and we've all seen it, Bugs Bunny and everybody, we're always eating carrots, but I guess that's not the case.
No, it's not. And I only found out about this in the past few years. So the history of rabbits eating carrots does come from Bugs Bunny with that, what's up, Doc? Yeah. But the reason that Bugs Bunny was doing that to begin with was that that was one of the first little memes that went on. And he was imitating Clark Gable. And it happened one night. And Clark Gable was standing up against a fence post eating a carrot when I can't remember who the female lead came upon him. And that's what he did. And so Bugs Bunny was supposed to be this debonair little rabbit. And that's why he was standing up against the fence, eating the carrot. What's up, Doc? And that's how we have the story of rabbits loving carrots. And sure, a rabbit likes carrots; they're nice and sweet, but that is not the basis of a rabbit's diet. And if you are feeding your rabbit carrots all the time, you're going to end up with a lot of soupy poop, as I would like to call it, all over everywhere.
That's a nice way of saying it. Soupy poop.
Yeah, soupy poop. Yeah.
And we'll be right back.
As a pet lover, did you know your pet can benefit from the incredible healing power of stem cell therapy? Prep Therapy offers a groundbreaking solution taken right from your pet's own blood. Say goodbye to joint pain, arthritis, kidney and liver conditions, and more. They'll experience faster recovery, increased vitality, and extended quality of life without the need for surgery or harmful drugs. Put the wag back in their tail and discover Prep Therapy today at prepvet.com. Save 10% with promo code FurRealPodcast, covered by most pet insurance.
So for people that are, this is a couple days, they're going to be hearing it a couple days after Easter. And if they end up getting a bunny, let's talk about the responsibilities and all that, one. And two is where they find the hay that's good for them that you're talking about. Not that, I mean, you said you can eat alfalfa, but that's not the best one. So let's talk a little bit of how they find that, what they do. Talk about, do they go to vets? Do you have to do them regularly? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, so it's incredible. Just think about the you want to give the same amount of care and attention to your rabbit as you would to a dog or a cat. And you'd never think of having a dog or a cat without taking it to the vet and having it vaccinated. And it's the exact same thing, and having a health check as well too. And it's the exact same thing for a rabbit. It's incredibly important that you get in contact with a rabbit savvy vet and take your new bunny in to be checked out. And I'm also assuming if they did a great job and got that bunny from a rabbit welfare organization doing rescue, that bunny's probably already going to be spayed or neutered. But if that bunny is coming from a pet store or a backyard breeder or something like that, it's highly unlikely that that bunny will be spayed or neutered. And if you really want to make that bunny a part of your home, being able to live with you, being able to be litter trained, and not being ruled by its hormones, that rabbit really needs to be spayed or neutered by a qualified rabbit veterinarian.
And there's a variety of reasons why. Let's go into the reasons why, other than just having litters, or whatever they call them. What do they call them? Litters?
Litters, yeah. Baby bunnies or kits, having lots of different kits and litters. And I will mention that a rabbit can, like, people mean well. They mean so well. And especially if you have two little bunnies and you don't know if they're boys or girls and you think, oh, I'm going to take care of it. Believe it or not, like, once a bunny is like somewhere between 12 to 14 weeks old, they can start reproducing, especially the smaller ones. And those rabbits can have a litter every 30 days. The day that a female rabbit gives birth, she can get pregnant again and will have another litter 30 days later while she's still nursing that first litter. So there's that issue. And even just putting all of that aside, rabbits are incredibly ruled by their hormones if they're not spayed or neutered. They're going to pee everywhere to mark their territory. The male rabbits, and this is what I found out with my first house rabbit, Fubar, he twirled around like a sprinkler, just and peed 360 basically to get his scent as far as he could, as quickly as he could. He gnawed on everything. He chewed on everything. And once he was a spayed bunny, he was a much happier bunny living inside, a much happier bunny that could have a partner to be with him, and was not constantly trying to hump paper towel rolls, towels, my leg, anything that moved. Rabbits are just very, very, very focused on breeding and mating if they are not spayed or neutered. And you'd really just like their personalities to come through and not their hormones. So spay or neuter is really important.
Do you know if pet insurance has stuff for rabbits? Have you ever? I'm curious.
Yes. So at this point, I would have to look up on our site. This is constantly changing. I believe that there is one company and only one, and I'd have to go back and look up the name for you, that is still offering pet insurance that applies to rabbits. There were about 3 companies 2 years ago, and now I believe that we're down to one. I'm not sure why we're only down to one, but you can get pet insurance for rabbits, and it is recommended to do that. Because the other thing I should mention as well too, the other important reason for spaying in female rabbits in particular is that rabbits are set up to reproduce. And so you've got all these hormones while they're young. If a rabbit is lucky enough to make it to 4 years of age, a domestic rabbit, they have a greater than 50% chance of developing some form of reproductive cancer, whether it's ovarian cancer, uterine cancer. It's huge. And the reason is this is just how nature works, that rabbits are set up to reproduce and reproduce very, very quickly when they're young. And nature is not set up to let them live their longest lives out in nature. that's the other reason why we want rabbits inside and not outside, is that there are many health problems that can get a rabbit very quickly, and animals and predators. The average lifespan of a rabbit living outside, I'm not saying no one has ever had a rabbit that doesn't live longer, but it's only 2 years. It's just, something will invariably happen, and whether it be GI stasis, myxomatosis in a place like the Western Coast, if your bunny isn't vaccinated, the RHDV2 disease, other kinds of diseases. I don't want to talk about all the negative things, the horrible things that can happen to bunnies, but just know it's incredibly important for them to be indoors, spayed or neutered, and you're going to have a long, wonderful life with your bunny.
Well, the other thing is too is they're not hares, they're bunnies, and the other thing is that they're like you said, they're a prey animal, so they don't have any defense mechanisms other than their
None.
feet.
That's right. And their teeth. Their teeth.
Yeah, their teeth. Yeah, that's true. Well, they do have big teeth. But you think if you're living in an area that's got owls,
Yes.
I mean, owls would totally do that. You got coyotes. You've got probably wild dogs, I would assume, and coyotes and all, hawks, whatever. I guess they're. I mean, they're not
Even raccoons.
all raccoons. Yeah,
Yeah, even raccoons. Yeah.
yeah. That would make sense. A
Yeah.
lot of sense. So, and also, they're not really designed to be outside from a weather standpoint, too, right? Or is that not true?
Well, they can stand some of the cold, but I mean, normally a bunny would be burrowing underground, like in nature, and you've got to realize that. So these are domestic rabbits; these aren't wild cottontails. If you see a wild cottontail outside, that's where they belong, and they are not meant to be house pets. Neither are hares as well too. And getting back to your earlier question, there is a difference between a rabbit and a hare. One of the primary ones is that hares, when they're born, actually have fur on them, as opposed to rabbits that are born hairless. But yeah, a rabbit in a cage outside, or even just running around on the ground, is pretty much defenseless, especially in the winter. But in the summertime as well too, the bunnies actually sometimes can cope with a cold, but the heat is what really, really can get a rabbit, whether it's inside or outside. And heat stroke's a real issue when the weather turns warm, and you have to, because rabbits don't sweat like other animals do, and so it's incredibly important to get.
Oh, so they don't sweat like
Yeah,
that.
so it's really important to get those, and that's why they have such big ears, and that's why they have all the veins and arteries that are going through there. That it helps them as a natural cooling mechanism.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, what is there much of the story that from wild rabbits to domestic rabbits? I mean, do you have any idea when that actually started? I mean, at some point, somebody got a wild rabbit and made it into a bunny. Is that kind of how it happened?
Well, it happened in Europe. And so I've got to say, I'm dyslexic. I'm really, really bad with proper names. So I cannot tell you the actual name, but the domestic rabbits that we have here are very, very closely related to the wild rabbits that you see in the UK, France, Germany, places like that. And and I believe that they can still interbreed, if I'm not mistaken about that. But they all come from the European area. They are very different from what we would see as wild rabbits here in the United States. And it's been on the order of, I think, about, if I'm not mistaken, overall, I think about 300, maybe 400 years since their domestication. There's a book by Margot DeMello called Stories Rabbits Tell, and it talks all about the history of rabbits, domestication of rabbits. And if you'd like to get more details about it, that's a book that I highly recommend.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that because, Easter's just happened for the people listening. And today, you've got the chocolate bunnies, you've got, people dressing up as Easter bunny. There's a lot of history there. That's not really, the origins of it are really kind of fascinating from a standpoint of hares and fertility and eggs and all that. Let's talk a little bit about that so people can understand how they became, instead of just the religious holiday, it's now Easter Bunny Day or whatever you want to call it.
Right. Well, and we see similar things with Santa Claus and Christmas as well too. So I think it's a similar thing in that long before. So bunnies have always been associated, as you said, with spring and fertility, and so it's that tie-in that tied in the bunnies with Easter, and it was the marketing through the chocolate companies, and Easter cards and things like that, especially in the Victorian era and in the early 20th century, where we saw bunnies being so tightly associated with Easter. And then we started having the Easter bunnies appearing for photos in malls and things like that for children as well too. And today, it's just bunny, bunny, bunny all over when it comes to Easter time. And in some ways, there's no problem with bunnies being associated with Easter. We just hope that for the most part, people understand that a chocolate rabbit or a stuffed, a little stuffy bunny or something like that, or a toy, is a much better choice for most families when it comes to thinking about bunnies and Easter. A live rabbit is, an 8 to 12 year commitment, and a great idea for many families, but not just. It's important to think about not just are my kids going to love this bunny, but am I going to love this bunny? Am I going to want to take care of this bunny and have it be a member of our family? And if the answer is yes, like fantastic, it's. Because rabbits are really wonderful to have in the house and a part of your family. And we haven't talked about it yet, but rabbits can get along just fine with dogs and cats as well too. There's no reason that you can't have all these species in the same household, as long as there's some basic house rules.
Well, I mean, when you do the homework that I did and you do the research into it, is that you find out they're literally termed a companion animal now, which is
Yes.
dogs, cats, and horses, basically. So they're in that category. So it's funny. I had told you this when we were talking, but I wanted to get into something for you guys that have gotten a bunny for Easter because you wanted your kids to get it, and I totally understand that. But there are a portion of people that get it that generally aren't responsible. But I thought this was really relevant to what we're talking about. So basically, and I'm reading this for anybody that's listening. An Easter bunny represents life, renewal, and joy. But the reality, based on historical statistics and all that, which I want to get into now, it really ends up being neglect, abandonment, and suffering. Because for everybody's got best intentions, we all know that. But when it's like anything else, some people shouldn't be owning a dog. They shouldn't be owning that because they don't have the responsibility. So let's kind of address that. Again, for you guys listening, I'm sure you're all responsible and you're going to be the best bunny parents in the world.
If they're listening to this podcast, I'm sure they are. So
Well,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. But it's good. I think it's good to be informed of what the situation is, what happens, and some of the not so pretty things that are there. So everybody's there because now you've got this responsibility and you have to be responsible. And it's not for bunnies have to be taken care of. And generally it's not a little child's or a young child's. They don't have that responsibility. It's going to be an adult's job. So when you're getting that for your kids, if you guys are listening, you're going to be doing a lot of the work as an FYI. So, but let's talk about the realities of that. And that's where I think your website does a good job. It talks about the realities of it and why you have to be responsible, why if you're really thinking about it, really, really, really think about it. Maybe too late now since we're after Easter, but talk about that. And of course, you have all the other things, how to take care of them. But what are historically, statistically, what are some of I have some of the numbers of what's going on generally after Easter, because we want to try to, if you really know what you're going to do, that's one thing. Sometimes we just do it because it's an impulse thing for our kids because we want our kids to have the best things and the cute things and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's kind of a yearly cycle that happens, and it's really sad. And that is that there are just a huge number of rabbits that are impulse purchases around Easter time. And then what we usually find is about 2 months later, and I say we, meaning the Rabbit.org Foundation and like these 400 independent rabbit rescues that are around the country. We generally find that about 2 months later, when these bunnies are about 3 to 4 months old, they've gone through puberty, they haven't been spayed or neutered. Summer break has happened for the kids, or sometimes when they're going back to school as well, and they don't have the time.
Summertime too.
Yeah. So, and people are wanting to go on vacation and somebody needs to care for the rabbit. But basically where the bunny just becomes more of a burden, is what we often find. And that parents often got the bunny thinking that it was a starter pet and it would be a great way to teach their kid responsibility. And when the responsibility often doesn't happen, the usual choice is that like, well, you didn't take care of that bunny. Now here's the consequence. We're getting rid of the bunny, or we just don't want to deal with the bunny anymore. And that's actually what I'm hoping that by talking with some of the listeners today that we might be able to stop, because these bunnies didn't end up in this situation, of their own choice. And even though you might have gotten the rabbit for your kids to begin with and thought it was going to be the kid's pet, I have so many good friends. As a rabbit educator, I'm always talking about not impulse buys. You'd be shocked at the number of my friends that even though they knew this, they ended up with a bunny one way or the other. But with a lot of education, their kids might not have stuck with the rabbit, but the adults did. And the adults found that it was a wonderful companion pet to have in the house, got along really well with their dog, got along really well with the bird. And it was a different kind of care and concern that was required for the rabbit. But that, these parents, even though their kids lost interest, were able to make a new home or have a new way of living for the bunny where they were caring for the rabbit, and they were taking care of the daily needs in terms of the hay and the exercise, changing the litter box. And they never thought that they were going to be a bunny lover to begin with, but things have changed, especially when their kids went off to college. So, and the bunnies often become some of their best friends.
So do the rabbits have to go on a regular time to the veterinarians, or how does that work?
Yes, minimally, a rabbit needs to go to the vet once a year to get their RHDV2 vaccine. That's at a minimum. And every animal, rabbit, dog, cat, should be going to a vet at least once a year for a well animal check. In this case, it's a well bunny check. But yes, once a year. And certainly when you initially get your bunny rabbit, you need to go to the vet to be spayed or neutered, health check, and vaccination.
So your recommendation out there, again, we're after Easter, but your recommendation is if you're going to do it, really know where you're getting yourself into, because it's a 8 to 12 year commitment at the end of the day.
It is. Yes, exactly. Know what you're getting into. And you know what? If you didn't know what you were getting into, that's all right. What was it that Carl Sagan, I think, said to someone, that it's all right if you're ignorant as long as you're curious. And, there's plenty to learn about bunnies. And just because you went in and you didn't necessarily know a lot, that's all right. That's basically how every single one of us started at some point. I was in that place too. And now I run a bunny education nonprofit. So, and I talk with people, that don't know much about bunnies and don't know what they got themselves into, and just got, taken in by, a cute pair of eyes and, something really fuzzy and cute. And that's okay. That's okay, because you can learn how to take proper care of this animal in your house, and you're just going to get lots of love and lots of joy of taking care of the rabbit, and learning about their behavior and what their special needs are, and just that you have to listen to their body language. They're never going to bark, they're never going to meow, but they are going to hold their ears up and forward when they're really curious. They're going to thump when they're pissed off, and they're going to wiggle their little butt when they're happy, and they're going to nip you when they want some attention or when they need something. So these are all things that you can learn. You're going to learn about the kinds of toys and enrichment that the bunnies need. We've already talked a little bit about the kinds of foods that they need. Very simple. We started talking about where you can get hay. There are lots of different places to get hay from. Actually, my number one place is the internet. The best hays can be found. There's a lot of different qualities of Timothy hay. I don't. I'm not paid to promote any one particular brand. I like Small Pet Select Third Cut Timothy for my rabbits. A lot of people do. The place where what I was saying before is the most important thing.
Right.
Find a hay that your bunny likes to eat. That's the most important thing, because 70 to 85% of a rabbit's diet should be hay. So find something that they like. You might be surprised. There might be a farm or feed supply store or a farm in your area that could provide you with local Timothy grass or hay or orchard grass. But if you can't find it anyplace else, you can get it online. The other thing is, if there's a rescue in your area, many of the rabbit rescues sell hay as a fundraiser as well. So check out your local rescue. They often sell lots of different things that are great for your rabbit, lots of great treats, lots of different enrichment toys, and hay as well.
You were talking about toys. What kind of toys do they like?
They like things that they can pick up and shake, throw around and chew. So it doesn't have to be a fancy toy. A cardboard box or a cardboard tube, especially a little cardboard tube stuffed with some extra special hay, like that. or a few little pieces of oats in with the Timothy hay, or some alfalfa hay, which is a little bit richer. You wouldn't normally be giving them, putting it all in there, or putting all that into a sock and letting them chew through a sock as well too. They like little stacking cups. You can put a couple of little pieces of kibble in between pieces of stacking cups, and they can learn to take each one of the cups out and come in and get the kibble. There are some toys that are made for bunnies, like little pull apart puzzles. Those are great as well too. But honestly, anything that the bunny can they can chew, they can nibble on, they can throw. They also like little plastic balls to pick up, nudge around as well. We also have things that work as habitats as well. They're little wicker tents that they like to sit under, because rabbits always want to have someplace low where that they can sit under, where they feel safe. Again, think prey animal, that they're afraid from something up above.
Paige, thanks so much for being on the show. You've been wonderful. As I said earlier, we've been through a lot of different things to make this happen, and you've been a trooper. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. I love talking about rabbits, and so appreciate having you on at this time of year to let people know about this often forgotten, unknown little creature.
Well, I love hearing about rabbits, but I really do appreciate everything. And then for everybody else that's listening out there, without you guys, we wouldn't have great guests like this. You guys are the one that keep the engine going. So keep following, listening, tell people about it. If you've got ideas for guests on the show, please email me again at mkyle@thefurrealpodcast.com. But most importantly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for real.
That concludes this episode of For Real with your host, Mark Kyle. For previous and future episodes of For Real, listen via all major podcast streaming sites.